I am recording this so you can go back and take a look at it, because I know I'm talking a little fast for you today, but there's a lot of information we need to cover. It is now being recorded so that you can go back and check it on MediaSite. Okay. Just for the sake of the recording, we've already covered the Roswell and Area 51 briefly talked about the JFK assassination and the elements of truth in conspiracy theories. Now we need to move on to one that, for Americans, and actually for a lot of people internationally, has caused a lot of uproar, all right? And that is the 9/11 World Trade Center bombings. Did it happen? Yes. You know, there's no question that it happened. The conspiracy comes in on why it happened and who did it. Has anybody in here heard any conspiracy theories about 9/11? About who actually perpetrated 9/11? You heard what? You heard that we did it. You heard that American people did it. Guess what? A lot of people have said that. Plain and simple, I'm not going to get into my own beliefs on it. I had some friends that were there, and I don't want to get too much into my beliefs in this, but there are conspiracy theories. There are conspiracy theories that people say America did this. There are conspiracy theories that say America knew about this. There are the straight theories that say Al-Qaeda bombed the World Trade Center, period, the end. But guess what? That's even been turned into a conspiracy theory because of why they did it. Now, there has been a documentary made, and I think this I will say my opinion about. I think it's an absolute horrible documentary. It's full of logical fallacy, but it's one that you may see if you decide to research this any further, called Loose Change. It's horrible. And I'm hoping, you know what, I may bring that in for you to look at, because it is one of the best examples of the worst uses of logical fallacy in the world. But we may come in and take a look at that. But it shows how these disastrous events can actually get people to believe different things simply through the event itself. And that's another thing we'll talk about today as well. Okay, so just know that there are conspiracy theories. There are some very believable conspiracy theories, actually about all of these, but especially about 9/11, because it's something that happened during our lifetime. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, it affected an entire nation. You know, people were crying in the streets. People thought that the world was coming to an end because their president had been assassinated. Same thing with 9/11. It hit people personally. It created an event. It created a situation that people were close to. This had happened on American soil. This was something that could lead to further attacks, and people wanted answers. So, Zoe asked you a question earlier, you know, the difference between why do people believe this and why do people need to believe this, and that's something that we'll address towards the end of this. You need to think about this question. Why do people believe conspiracy theories, but also why do we need to believe conspiracy theories? Because there is a need to as well, right? Illuminati. So many conspiracy theories involving the Illuminati. Do you know what the Illuminati are? Have you ever hear everybody Googling away? Google. I guarantee you, if you Google Illuminati, the first thing that's going to come up, conspiracy theories. Because there's so many there. Okay. The basics of the Illuminati. The Illuminati, actually associated with this symbol right here, sort of. This is the symbol of the Freemasons, right? Little backstory. I'm not going to get into the religious and full backgrounds of it, but just in a nutshell, the Freemasons, or commonly referred to as the Masons, they're philanthropists, which means that they go out and they help people. Many of my family members have been Freemasons. And all it is going out and helping people, doing things for people that are in need. You see somebody who needs food, that needs help, you help them. But here's where it becomes tricky. You don't let anybody know. Most people who try to help people, there's some kind of return. They want some kind of a thank you or something for the work they do.
The time is
one of the main tenets, one of the main things in being a Freemason is there's a secrecy to it. So if I see that somebody is in total need of money and can't do anything, I may just come over and just may put it under here and just walk away. I don't want to thank you. I don't want anything. It becomes secretive. All right? So the Freemasons were philanthropers. They are philanthropers. Then we start getting politics involved. Then we start getting conspiracies involved because of the secrecy, and all of a sudden we have this thing called the Illuminati, the light, all right? The Illuminati supposedly run the Freemasons, and the rest of the entire world, China, United States, Iran, Iraq, England, Spain, Portugal, everywhere, is run by a very small group of people called the Illuminati. And guess what? There's proof. If you look at the American dollar bill, there's proof because there's a pyramid. And the Illuminati actually go back to the Egyptians. That pyramid actually spells out words in Egyptian about the United States. We have a conspiracy theory on our hands, don't we? We'll talk why this is not a true conspiracy theory later on. But this is my point. Secrecy builds conspiracy theories. This need to explain something that's a secret. So even the best intentions, there's a famous saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Well, there are bad people in the Freemasons, there are bad people in the Illuminati, but the Illuminati and the Freemasons as a whole are philanthropers. And because they're secretive, because not everybody can be a member of the Freemasons, or at least couldn't, everybody can be a member of the Freemasons now, but there's a special secret process you have to go through to get into it. They even have secret handshakes. So it's mired in secrecy. People want to know. So instead of actually getting all the information, what do? They take pieces and think they've got it put together. Right? So, Illuminati, Freemasons. Next. Now, this is one. Think back what I said earlier about conspiracy theories can be proven true given time. The Gulf of Tonkin invasion, or the Gulf of Tonkin cover-up. Does anybody know what the Gulf of Tonkin was, or what the Gulf of Tonkin is? Guys, I want to know if you know, not if your computer knows. It's a simple question. Do you know what the Gulf of Tonkin is? Okay. Do you know where the Gulf of Tonkin is? You ever heard of a little country called Vietnam? Oh, okay. Do you know what America did concerning Vietnam? Yes. It's a big problem, right? All right. Now, this is where the reality and the falsity kind of get mired a little bit. When America was pulled into Vietnam, what Americans were told was that one of our ships were fired on in the Gulf of Tonkin, right? That's what we were told. Factually, that's what we were told. However, many years later, we find documents that show, and that this is kind of debunking the conspiracy a little bit, because we find these documents that show that never happened. The ship was never fired on. Now, was it a conspiracy? By definition, yes, because it was covered up. Was it done to hurt a civilization, to hurt a culture? That's where it becomes debatable. That's one I'm not going to touch. But the point is, the conspiracy was proven to be true. With time, it was proven that the ship in the Gulf of Tonkin was never fired on. All right? So, this is why I want to make it very, very, very clear that when you start looking at conspiracy theories, you may find things that are true and you may find things that are false. And sometimes it is extremely difficult to separate the truth from the falsity. And that's what we need to figure out how to do in order to understand how these things work and how to advance these levels of critical thinking that I've been talking about. Okay? And finally, what do we have down here? Oh, CIA assassinations. All right? Has the CIA, the U.S. secret Central Intelligence Agency, have they gone out and assassinated people? Yeah. Does the American public know about it as soon as it happens? No. What would happen if we have these secret operations going on and the American public finds out about it? It blows the operation. So, is there a cover-up? Is there intentional secrecy involved in these CIA operations, in these CIA assassinations? Absolutely. 100%. The CIA will be the first ones to tell you, yes, we cover things up. And therein creates even more conspiracy. But it's not just a conspiracy saying the CIA killed so-and-so. The CIA tried to kill so-and-so. It becomes a conspiracy against the organization itself. So then the CIA becomes this secret organization like the Illuminati, where things that are false become sort of truths about the organization, which creates even more problems. One of the funniest things that involves the CIA and assassination attempts, in my opinion, does anybody know who Fidel Castro is? Fidel Castro. It's the only other communist country in the world, guys. Cuba. Technically he's still in charge of Cuba, but it's actually his brother because he's too sick. But America came in and said, we're going to try and get rid of Castro. We don't like Castro. And I'm not kidding. This was true. One of the ways that the CIA was going to try to get rid of Fidel Castro was, Dan, do you know this? They were going to give him an exploding cigar. Fidel Castro loved his cigars. Loved his cigars. And the CIA, honest, I'm not kidding you, was going to slip in a hidden exploding cigar so that when he lit his cigar, blow his head off. Now, did it work? Obviously not. Was it tried? Yeah. Documentation has come along that has shown this was a real operation. This was really going to happen. So, was there a conspiracy to kill Fidel Castro? Yes. Does that mean that this is a good thing or a bad thing? That's for you to decide, and that's what we need to figure out. Okay. So, these are just some examples of the most popular conspiracy theories. There are thousands of them. In the United States, I found out some in China when I was trying to research some. So every place that has pretty much anything of interest in the news or anything of interest socially is going to have a conspiracy theory around it. Right? So, let's take a look then. Why do people believe conspiracy theories? Why do we believe them? It can really be summed up in one word. We need to rationalize. We need to rationalize an answer. We need to figure out why something terrible happened. And this also answers the question I gave to you, Zoe. Why do we need to? Okay? Why do we believe them? Because we have an inherent need to understand. As human beings, we need to know why something horrible happened to our neighbor or something horrible happened to our friend. And with the shrinking global economy and the shrinking global infrastructures, we're becoming a more tight-knit community. Look at the internet. How many of you, actually don't raise your hands because, this could create another conspiracy, but how many people on Facebook have friends that are in Iraq or in America? You know, I set up that program with you guys where you can talk to some of my old students from Kurdistan. You've got people you talk to in Iraq. So something that happens in Iraq now has a closer tie to your own life. It may be somebody you know. It may only be somebody you talk to on Facebook or somebody you talk to on Skype or somebody you talk to on QQ. But you're connected to that person in some way. Therefore, you're becoming more connected in this global community. Therefore, if something happens to them, you want to rationalize. You need to rationalize what happened. Think back to 9/11, okay? We come back here. I can tell you right now, when this happened, I didn't believe it until I saw it on the news. And this is real. This is really what we saw. And immediately the nation had to rationalize. We had to figure out, why did this happen? How could this happen? Why would somebody do this to us? Well, guess what? There are a lot of places around the world, unfortunately, that don't like America. But do you think we wanted to admit that? Do you think we wanted to say, hey, we might have been kind of the bad guy in a few ways? No. We want to rationalize it in some way. Now, when I say rationalize, this is where it gets tricky again. Rationalize has nothing to do with right or wrong, truth or false. Rationalization is just what you believe. It's your opinion of why something happened. It doesn't have to be true or false. Now, to make a good rationalization, a true rationalization, to come up with the truth, you need to filter your rationalization, of course. But, again, we'll talk more about this. But to rationalize is simply what you believe. It's simply your understanding of why something happened. Now, conspiracy theories play on that. They know that we need to rationalize. They know that we need to put together something that makes sense. All right? Something I haven't included in here as far as making sense that I'll add to this real quick, and this actually has a lot to do with rationalization. Has anybody heard of this? Have you heard this phrase, Occam's razor? Has anybody heard that? Occam's razor is a Latin philosophical term which simply means the simplest explanation is the best explanation. All right? Quite simply, the simplest explanation is the best explanation. So Occam's razor is the most simple means of getting to the truth. All right? There's a long story that explains the razor. I won't get into that right now. You can check that on your own. But the reason I bring this up is this has a lot to do with rationalization. We want to find the simplest way to get our brains from point A to point B. Why did this happen? Because of this. Nothing in between. Well, as you know, as you're learning through critical thought, that's not always the best way to the truth. That may not always be the way in which we get to the truth. It may require moving through some different ways to find out exactly what happened. But our rational mind wants the simplest explanation. We want to believe the simplest explanation. Therefore, conspiracy theories come up because they advertise themselves. They become the simplest explanation. All right? So, let's take a look at what all conspiracy theories have in common. Now, you will seldom hear me use all or none, but when it comes to conspiracy theories, there are some things that kind of make them conspiracy theories. All right? What do all conspiracy theories have in common? They have very little concrete information. Now, I want to justify this because a lot of them, when you look at something like loose change, it will have tons of concrete information. But here's the problem. It's not really concrete information. It's false. So there's a justification here. The actual information that seems concrete normally is false. So it has very little concrete information. It's based primarily on belief. All right? That's the conspiracy theory is rooted in belief. All right? Secondly, did I misspell it? No. It contains both true and false statements, and this is where it gets very dangerous. You will seldom ever, if ever, find a conspiracy that's completely, totally, 100% wrong, completely false with no truth whatsoever. Case in point. How many of you know who Stephen King is? The writer, Stephen King. He's probably one of the most popular pop fiction writers in America, behind J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter. Actually, very good friends with J.K. Rowling. Okay. How many of you know who John Lennon is? John Lennon. Beatles, absolutely. Lead singer of the Beatles. John Lennon was assassinated in 1980. All right? Yeah, he was killed in 1980. Guess what? There is a conspiracy theory. There's a reason I asked you if you knew who Stephen King was. There is a conspiracy theory that Stephen King, the writer Stephen King, assassinated John Lennon in 1980. I am not making this up. You can go online and check it. Now, it is a crazy, ridiculous conspiracy theory, but here's the truth. Here's the truth of the matter. Stephen King wrote a book called Insomnia, right? And in this book, he gives very detailed information about how Lennon was assassinated that was never released to the public, and how he would go about assassinating somebody else. That's true. It's in his book, Insomnia. It shows how to do it. But it comes after the fact. All right? That's your shred of truth for that. Then it kind of blows up around there. We have to make that assumption. Remember, in talking about logical fallacy, we talk about having to make that jump between 2 points. We have to jump from Stephen King wrote about how to assassinate someone in great detail to he assassinated John Lennon. Right? So there's a leap of faith that you have to take that doesn't really work. All right? So I'm going to introduce you to all kinds of weird, strange conspiracy theories, but we'll talk about whether you should believe them or not. All right? So they contain social and or political implications. Go back to the dictionary definition of conspiracy theory, and we see social and political implications, right? It has to pertain, it has to be meaningful to a group of people. If I come to you and I say, I've got a conspiracy theory for you. I think my daughter is putting sugar in my son's drinks so that he'll be more active. Is that a conspiracy theory? Yeah. Does it pertain to y'all? No, not really. Do you really care? No. So it doesn't really create a conspiracy. It creates an event that pertains to me and possibly my wife and possibly my 2 children. A conspiracy it does not make. It has to have some kind of implication for a society, for a group of people, for a community. Now, when I use the word community, we talked a lot about community in the last writing cycle where we went out into the community. You need to think of community as any size. Right now, you are in 5 communities, right? You're in small communities. But in this classroom, you're also in a community. In this school, you're in a community. In this town, you're in a community. In this country, you're in a community. So a community can really be of any size. The larger the community, the larger the conspiracy theory affects. Let me rephrase that. The larger the community that the conspiracy theory affects, the greater that conspiracy theory will tend to be perceived as true or false and really polarize different sides. Which is the bottom here. Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go. Finally, it will polarize communities. What do I mean by polarize? What does this word polarize mean? Polarize. The root of the word, actually there's a double root of the word. We have polarize, polar, pole, right? When I say polar, what does that mean? Where are the poles on this earth? There you go. It's here and here. It's here and here. Exactly. Polar. North Pole, South Pole. Right? Complete opposites, right? So to polarize a community, think critically about this for a minute. What do you think? Am I saying that, okay, everybody in the community is going to move to the North Pole and the South Pole? No. What does it mean? Totally different opinions. Absolutely. People are going to believe one way or another way. And it does. It tends to polarize a community. Right? When I saw loose change, I looked at it and I used some words that I'm not going to use in this classroom. Right? It offended me. It polarized me to one side. But at the same time, the amount of time those people put into making that shows their polarization, shows them polarized on the other side. Right? Now, let's take a look then. Is it okay to believe conspiracy theories? And this is my favorite answer right here. Yes, but. You heard me talk about this before. If you're going to argue something, you can believe whatever you want to believe. As long as you focus on this one little word right here. Focus on your butt. Nobody got it. All right? The butt is the biggest part of proving your beliefs. Just like when you wrote, okay, go back to when I said, writing about the community exercise. I told you it's perfectly fine for you to disagree with me. It's perfectly fine for you to say, I think Dr. Brian completely wasted our time by having us go to restaurants, right? But you have to explain it. You have to elaborate on it. You really have to start thinking about these things. Now, This is why, this right here that we're about to talk about is why conspiracy theories work so well. It's a trick. It's a magic trick. All right? The magic trick is they make you think that they've done all the work for you. All right? So, when you hear a conspiracy theory that sounds reasonable, that sounds simple, Occam's razor, it sounds simple, it sounds reasonable, and it rationalizes your beliefs, well, then it's got to be true. Right? It takes less work. If you hear a conspiracy theory, it takes you less work to get to what they believe is the truth than what it took the person who started the conspiracy theory to get to the truth. All right? Because you assume, have I told you guys about the word assume? How to break the word down? Yes. It makes an ass out of you and me. Exactly. So, you assume that this person has done all their work, has done all their homework, and is giving you all the accurate information. So you kind of put that aside, and you say, all right, they've done the work, they're citing sources, they know what's going on, so I can believe this person. Well, guess what? That's the hardest part right there, that you just give away to someone with a conspiracy theory. You give your concession of belief to that person like that. And that's why conspiracy theories work, because they find the simplest way of saying something that allows you to simply believe. Same way magic tricks work. So, is it okay to believe conspiracy theories? Yes, but there are 4 things you need to do. You need to think critically. You need to examine closely. You need to research. I'm just going to say research. Okay. Research extensively, and I say rinse and repeat. Right? That means you got to go back and do it again and again. Because, guess what? New information comes out, you got to repeat the process. Then, once you've repeated the process, guess what? New information comes out, you have to do it all over again. So, it's extremely important to go through these steps when you hear something that seems even the slightest bit fantastic, or the slightest bit too simple. All right? And this is what we're going to work on. These are the steps we're going to take in looking at conspiracy theories. All right? Let me pause right here and ask if you have any questions, because I've just covered a lot of information fairly quickly, and some of you coming in didn't really have a grasp on what a conspiracy theory was, so we've gone a long way in just a short time. So, what kind of questions do you have? Do it. I'll even back up to where you can see the whole thing. There you go. So if you have any questions about certain parts or seeing through the smoke. What do I mean by that? Does anybody else know what I mean? Exactly. When you think of it in terms of magic, please tell me you're making that colder and not hotter. Are you making it hotter or colder? No, please turn it back on. If you're cold, then move, because guys, I'm sweating up here. It's really warm. Let me tell you this, and this is the truth. You can put on more clothes than you want me to take off in this class, okay? So, if you're cold, bring a jacket, because I don't think they'd appreciate what I'd be teaching in if it's too hot in here, okay? All right, so, seeing through the smoke. Get us back on track. It's kind of it's a magic term, all right? When we say that we're using sleight of hand, like, ooh, here's a pin, I'm going to make it disappear, type thing. I'm horrible at magic. But the point is, it's smoke and mirrors. We call it smoke and mirrors. Because when you see a magic trick, they use smoke and mirrors to hide what's actually going on. So seeing through the smoke is seeing behind the trick of the conspiracy theory. Actually, if I stand right here. There we go. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let me come to this final slide then, because it's something that we addressed earlier in the semester, but we put it on the back burner because people were having a little bit of trouble with it. And I want us to get a little bit more experience in the actual argumentative process before we really dove into this beast of a word here. Logical fallacies. And I remember you guys looking at some of these logical fallacies and being like, I don't get it. Well, you have the argumentative process now. And hopefully this will allow you to understand logical fallacy a little bit better, right? We're going to look at logical fallacies. We're going to look at about 10 of them over the next few weeks. But instead of just giving you this big long list like I did a few weeks ago and saying, hey, we're going to start talking about these, we're going to look at them 2 at a time. All right? So starting next class, we'll start examining specific logical fallacies, and we'll spend a great deal of time taking them apart and making sure you understand them. Because the only way to completely understand a conspiracy theory is understanding logical fallacy, how it works, why it works, and how to recognize it. This is the other thing that I did not put on what do all conspiracy theories have. I have not come across a single conspiracy theory that does not have logical fallacy. Even if it is the truth, even if it's something like the CIA assassinations or the Gulf of Tonkin cover-up, the way in which the information is presented tends to be mired in logical fallacy. And what this does is it takes credibility away. Hopefully, it takes credibility away. And that's what we'll be looking at in this paper that you're going to write, is you are going to try to disprove conspiracy theories. You are going to have to prove that these conspiracy theories are false. The only way to do that, the only way that you can disprove a conspiracy theory is by recognizing logical fallacy, by analyzing the information and recognizing it as logical fallacy. Okay? Questions? No questions? Okay. Let me kind of map out for you what we're going to do for the rest of the class, because we'll go ahead and take our break here very shortly. We're going to examine a particular conspiracy theory, right? But first, I want to ask you guys a question. Get out your cell phones, please. Please get your phones out. I want to see your phones. I have a question for you that I want you to answer. Okay? Do you believe human beings have set foot on the moon? Have human beings been to the moon? All right? Text this number right here. This number if you say yes. This number if you say no. Please do it now. Get out of your way so you can see it. Oh, what do we have coming up? It's 50-50 so far. Do you believe? Oh, the yeses are going up now. Even more. About 30 more seconds to get your votes in. Oh, it keeps going down. Very interesting. 86% to 14%. 86% of you believe we've actually been to the moon. Interesting. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to discuss this question for about 5 minutes. All right? In your groups, discuss your beliefs on whether we've been to the moon or not. Okay? Go ahead. Yes.
Is that what you just did with the cell phones, what we were talking about?
The poll everywhere.
No, but you did the polls, but based upon what they were doing with their cell phones. How did you do that?
No, it's just a website that you go to called Poll Everywhere.
Oh, I see. Oh, and there was that website, and then
yeah, and then see it has the phone number there.
So in other words, it was this particular group.
Well, no, anybody can do it.
Oh, right, but I thought you were focusing on what this class.
Yes, this is specifically set up for this class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was everything that came up was what they said.
Okay, and what's the term that you were using that Mike Searson told you about how they can text back?
Oh no, this is polling. Back channel chat is what we do during the film, and it's just like a chat room that's going to go up. This is just it's a cool way so they can see the results immediately on the screen. The back channel chat will come when we start the film.
All right.
But, yeah.
Okay,
oh, did we change even more? Yeah, we did. We went down even further. All right. 89 to 11. All right. Ah, somebody's heard the theory over here. Oh, the nose got a little ground. It went up to 20%. All right. Two more minutes, guys. Has anyone been to the moon? Maybe those aliens that crash landed, maybe they've been to the moon. Okay, let's go ahead and time right here. Guys, I'm very glad that we're discussing it, but I want to go ahead and move on, all right? Here's what we're going to do. If you want to keep talking about it, great. But I'm going to call our official break right now. Take a 15-minute break. When we come back, we're going to watch a documentary about the moon landing. And then we'll talk about it a little bit. All right? So, 15-minute break, and then I'll meet you back in here, and we'll keep moving. Okay. So the first poll asked if you believed if we landed on the moon. This poll, after watching the video, I'm curious. Do you still believe we landed on the moon? Oh, whoa. Let's get everybody in there. I'm waiting for a yes. And I do have to say the quote of the day in today's meet has to go to Alice, to the, it's too cold to survive in this classroom, which I disagree with. Oh, yeah, a few yeses in here. Oh, oh, oh. Remember, our previous poll was 86 to 14 on percentages. About 30 seconds left. It's not moving. Interesting. All right. Well, somebody, I think it was Zoe, asked me. Somebody did. Somebody asked me. And, was it Lucian? Somebody asked me what I believed, if I believed we landed on the moon. Would you like to know my answer?
Yes. No. Yes.
I think we did. Now, this is why conspiracy theory is so much fun to study, because that was a very compelling argument. There was a lot of good stuff in that documentary. But guess what? 90% of what they told you is complete and total lies. 100% logical fallacy, lies. But remember, we've been talking the entire semester about rhetoric, right? Logos, ethos, pathos. Logos, ethos, pathos, playing all the way through this video from the very beginning. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the moon landing, right? Well, apparently it's something really important if we can get this guy to talk in a really deep voice about it, right? Then it's expert after expert after expert. Logos. Well, some of the points they brought up are absolutely 100% true. But they don't pertain to exactly what they're talking about. It's called disjoining the facts, which we're going to talk a lot more about. But the reason I love this so much, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I saw this in 1990, I think it was 1997 when it came out, I looked at this thing and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. We didn't go to the moon. I always wanted to be an astronaut. We didn't go to the moon. I'm devastated. We didn't go to the moon. I'm never going to get to be an astronaut. Couldn't be an astronaut because of my eyes anyway. But the point is, I was like, I was just blown away. It made me angry. And I spent almost 5 years. It wasn't until about 3 or 4 years ago, because I watched it. I was like, these are experts. But then I started thinking about things like, wait a minute. I've done a little photography in my day, and I took a picture. This is how it all came back. So I took a picture, and it was in the desert. It's like, this looks a lot like one of those pictures that they were talking about. And so I went and I looked at the actual pictures that they took. I was like, wait a minute. This could happen. This could really happen. Then I started exploring some of the other things, and I talked to many physicists. My friends, I worked at Texas Tech University, so we had all kinds of research going on all over the place. And I asked them about these Van Allen radiation belts. And guess what? They exist. But guess what? They can be stopped by a piece of aluminum foil. Piece of aluminum foil that you use in your microwave. In fact, the amount of radiation you use in your microwave is 10 times more powerful than those Van Allen radiation belts. Because if you know anything about physics, you've got the wave, and then you've got the intensity of the wave, kind of like volts and watts in your electricity. It's totally different. So, what you just saw here was conspiracy theory at work, probably, in my opinion, in one of its finest workings anyway, because it convinced me. It's convinced almost everybody I've known that has seen it. But what separates the critical thinkers, though, is going in and examining, and not just taking this one person that they're talking to. Now, I want you to go back to this original thought that I told you about why we need to believe it, right? This video was shot in 1996-97. But can you think back to the video, and can you think of where this idea started developing that we faked the moon landing. Actually, that's the other thing about this video. It actually contradicts itself and answers all of its questions in the video, if you know how to watch it. But when do you think this actually began, this thought that we faked the moon landing? When did we supposedly land on the moon? I said the year up there. Dan, do you remember? 1968. Yeah, 1968. 1968, all right? Yeah. We started in 1967. But yeah, 1968, we landed on the moon. What was going on? They said this in the video also. What was going on in 1968? Why were we trying to get to the moon so fast?
With another country, competition with another country.
Yes, which other country? Soviet Union, Russia, absolutely. So, why was it important for us to get there first? It's actually kind of a question, a philosophical question, if you think about it. Why was it important? The Cold War. It was the Cold War. We had to, it was Russia and the United States, right? I mean, you guys were kind of like, we're just going to let you guys fight it out. So you had Russia and the United States. They were trying to vie for world supremacy, more or less, right? Whoever got to space first, that somehow became the goal, the standard. Whoever did it first was better, right? Russia had already put Sputnik, the first satellite, up. Well, John F. Kennedy, the guy we just talked about not too long ago, was the one that said, we will put a man on the moon. We will get people into space. We will put a man on the moon. So that began what we call the space race. All right? So, going back to this idea of why did we need to believe it? We needed, and you guys answered it in the chat room, we needed to have this sense of superiority because that's our country. There's a sense of pride for the country. We had to be first. Now, let me go back here for a minute. Because I said yes. I do believe we landed on the moon. But, remember? I said it's a very important word. But, do I believe we had a good reason to fake a moon landing if we did? Absolutely. Because the reasons are there. The motive is there. Everything is there for why we needed to fake it. We needed to prove superiority. And they even said this in the video. It was a necessity. So if we couldn't do it, we needed to prove to the rest of the world that we could. Now, that being said, all of the pictures that they show, I said, I've done some photography. The pictures that they show, do I believe that all of the pictures that we see from the moon are from the moon? No, I don't. Because I know that they're not physically possible. But there is enough information showing that we did go to the moon. Now, this is where it becomes conspiratorial. Because there were lies involved. Because there were questionable actions. This is where the conspiracy is born. This is where people have to start rationalizing what's going on. And one thing that they talked about in there that really got Americans starting to rationalize about this was the death of Grissom, Chaffee, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Ed White, that's right, thank you. White, Grissom, and Chaffee. When this crash happened, and there was a lot of controversy around this crash, it began generating these thoughts, generating these ideas of, could this really be, could this have really happened? But at the same time, we go back even further, the Russians were trying to rationalize the fact that we had beat them to the moon. So they begin saying, well, no, they didn't go. It was fake. So that rationalization starts trickling in, starts trickling down. And it starts to get people thinking. It starts to get people questioning what's going on. So the rationalization here comes from many different areas, and it perpetuates to this day. This came out in 1997, during a time when certain files in the U.S. Were starting to be released to the public. All right? I think it was 1996 when they started releasing files about Roswell. Well, this stood to reason that it would follow because it was also part of Area 51. Right? Well, guess what? When 9/11 happened, guess what resurfaced? The moon theory. Because it's more rationalization of the government. The rationalizing that people are trying to rationalize here is, does our government lie to us? Yes, they do, but sometimes they need to. Right? It doesn't mean they're lying about every little thing that comes along. So what people are trying to rationalize then is the integrity, what their view of an integrity in the government is. So it all becomes this kind of umbrella to catch everything from the JFK assassination to aliens and UFOs to did we land on the moon. So there's this big movement that's been really going on strong for the last 15 to 20 years. It's been going on for a long time, but it's really picked up steam over the last 15 to 20 years over transparent government, that the government should let us know everything that's going on. We see that now over the last 3 to 4 years with this WikiLeaks, which I have very different opinions on that as well. So, but the point is that we want a government, we want something that we can see everything that's happening. And that's what we're trying to rationalize. We're trying to rationalize an idea of a transparent government. Right? Now, a lot of information, but I'm sure you've got questions. You have some really good questions in there. Bring them out. Let's talk about them here. So what kind of questions do you have about the moon landing, about conspiracy theories in general? Let's talk about them for a minute. Let me ask you this, and I probably should have done this before I debunked the whole thing. But what do you feel was the most compelling piece of information in the entire argument? What to you, because there were some of you in there at different points who were like, yep, we didn't land on the moon. So what was the most compelling piece of information for you? Or what made you believe? What made you switch your belief? Do what? What about it? Oh, what about the flag? The waving of the flag? Yeah. That was one of the first things that got me too. What else? That was the part that I still have trouble with. Exactly. The shadows from the photography. And that's why I justify my yes. Do I believe that we went? Yes, but are all the pictures real? No, I don't believe the pictures are real. One of the most famous pictures, I don't know if I can find it on here. Let me. I always hate searching for images in front of a class because you never know what you're going to get. But one of the most famous images. We'll try this. We'll try astronaut moon. There's a very, very famous image. That's not it. Of the astronaut with the world reflected in his helmet. I'm sure you've seen it. Try that. I'll go through and see if I can find it. I'll post it in the today's meet for you. There's this famous picture of this astronaut standing on the moon with the Earth reflected in his visor. That photograph is completely, totally, 100% impossible. There's no way that picture is real. But this is where I'm saying we needed it. We didn't just need the picture. Yeah, I'm sure we got some pretty horrible pictures from the moon, and I agree with what they're saying about the cameras. But this is other things that we tend to forget. I'm blind, and I can take really good photographs. You want to know why? I can crop them. I can cut them so that they fit perfectly. They never addressed that. With the pictures, we needed images for people to see. We needed things that people could grab onto. What proves it more. What is more beautiful than having somebody standing on another world with our world reflected in it, right? So, yes, there was a need. There was rhetoric. That's what it was. It was rhetoric, just like the advertisements. Some of you in your advertisements for your translations talked about using rhetoric in your advertisements. That's what these pictures were. They were rhetoric. Why do we want to take pictures? To prove we did it, to get people behind us. It is rhetoric. It's pathos, 100% pathos. So, the pictures, the fact that we're actually using the pictures pulls away from the argument itself because it's obvious. Now, if the government wanted to come, if the government wanted to clarify everything and say, yeah, these pictures were fake, but these pictures were real, but then that begins another conspiracy about, well, are these pictures really real or are they just releasing information? So, what ends up happening is what we said earlier, the shreds of truth with the lies get mixed together. The pictures are those shreds of truth and lies mixing together. Good.
But if you don't believe the pictures, how would you make believe that we have set foot on the moon? Do you have any more evidence to prove this?
Yes, I do. But I'm not giving it to you yet because of the paper you're going to write. I'll give you all the information why I don't believe it. Or, I mean, why I don't believe it. But as far as why I do believe it, you don't get that yet. We will talk about it, though. There is some very compelling evidence. I have given you some in saying that these are lies, but I won't tell you what the lies are. Any other comments or questions?
I just want to ask, what's Freemasons in your eyes?
Do what?
Freemasons, the Illuminati. You mentioned the former.
Oh, yeah, the Freemasons, yes. What about them?
What a Freemason is in your eyes?
It's a society of people who help other people.
And what do you think about this?
About what?
Like you said, the dollar
Illuminati, yes.
in the U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
And John Kennedy's assassinations.
Yeah.
Not he's only one that the president isn't the Freemason.
Yeah. And see, you're getting conspiratorial on me, man. Here's the thing. Like I said before, anytime there's secrecy, anytime any secrecy is involved, you're going to get conspiracy. All right. Again, I don't want to go into the whole history of the Freemasons, but there are two branches of the Masons. You have the Knights Templar, and I cannot remember the other side. My family has always been Knights Templar. And it is a group of men. The Masons themselves are only men. There are organizations through the Masons that are for women. There's the Daughters of the Crystal Color, Daughters of the Golden Dawn, things like that. They have their own organizations, but it is made up of men. And these men, do you know what a fraternity is? Have you heard of fraternities? In the United States, when you go to college, a lot of people choose to join a fraternity. Fraternities can be either good or bad. I wanted to recommend the movie Animal House, but nah. It's on the file server if you're interested. Fraternities tend to be groups of men. You have fraternities and sororities. Fraternities are men, sororities are girls. And it tends to be a group of like-minded individuals. In the case of college fraternities, it can center around science clubs or race, skin color. There are certain fraternities that are specifically for African Americans. They can center around religion. But the most famous fraternities center around the men's desire to drink copious amounts of alcohol. Right? So that's your popular fraternities, your sports fraternities, things like that. They can center around sports too. The Masons are probably the world's oldest fraternity. All right? Which means it was a group of men that wanted to get together and just share ideas. It turned into what we call philanthropy, which simply means helping other people and not expecting anything in return. Right? Well, with this level of secrecy, two things happen. First of all, it becomes conspiratorial. Secondly, because of that conspiratorial nature, it becomes immensely popular. It creates this desire to become a part of this secret society. So, the Masons are like, well, two things happen here. Again, the Masons say, well, we can make this popular, but there's something about the secrecy that's really cool. Nobody knows what goes on. I mean, that's actually kind of cool. But it also allows them to remain secretive on their philanthropic work. It allows them to give to different people, to give to different organizations and charities without them knowing who did it through their secrecy. Now, as this progresses, a lot of powerful people become members of the Freemasons. Like I said, I have many Freemasons in my family, and on the personal level, on the family level, in Lubbock, Texas, for example, Scottish Rites. That's the other one. You have the Scottish Rites and then the Knights Templar. You have the Scottish Rites Temple, you have the Knights Templar, and you go once a week to sit down and have a meeting and talk. That's all you do. You can move up, and you get different say in the organization, and there are these big ceremonies. You wear robes and everything, and it's a lot of fun. It's a bunch of guys sitting around and talking and dressing up in robes. All right, but when powerful people get involved, for example, George W. Bush was a Freemason. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a Freemason. Pretty much like what you're saying, the only president up until Barack Obama that wasn't a Freemason, I think, was John F. Kennedy. And that created conspiratorial thoughts. Powerful people get involved, we start thinking more secrecy, especially when some of these people make decisions which polarize communities, right? Probably one of the most popular presidents in the United States was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He's the only president to serve for 3.5, almost 4 terms. Hugely popular for most of his presidency, but that doesn't mean that everybody liked him. He did a lot of things that angered a lot of people. It polarized. So we have people that can make decisions, about your life in a secret society. Rationalizing, we go, that person's doing something in that secret society. That person is doing something that will affect my life. So we have this need to rationalize what we don't know. And that's what happens with the secrecy. Then we start looking at our dollar bills, our U.S. dollar bills with the pyramid on it, which actually makes a Jewish star. And then you look at the 12 stars on the euro for the European Union, and there's conspiracy there too. Because guess what? There's never been 12 nations in the EU. So where are those 12 stars from? Oh, they must be from the 12 tribes of Israel. So you get all these things rolling into different conspiracies that really have nothing to do with the original thought. And that's what kind of happened a little bit on Did We Land on the Moon? That's a very long answer to your question about the Freemasons, but yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I think the American government only use pathos and ethos to make people believe that Americans have landed on the moon. But there are a lot of evidence to prove it that is not true.
There is.
So I think it's not a conspiracy. It's only maybe they want to prove they are stronger than the Russia.
Yeah. But then why are we still doing it?
It's fallacy.
It is. Exactly. It is a logical fallacy. Now, you bring up a very, very good point. There is logos. There's a lot of logos in there, but primarily it is ethos and pathos. You're absolutely right. And here's what we see different. I mentioned this a little bit, and I'm actually very shocked that you're able to pick this up, and I'm very surprised in a good way. When I teach rhetoric in the United States, I always cringe when I have to teach logos. American students have a very difficult time understanding logos.
The time
Pathos,
is
boom,
9
they get it right off the bat.
o'clock
Pathos
p.m.
is the first thing they recognize. Takes a little bit of time to get ethos, but they struggle with logos. For some reason, logic just doesn't work. You can laugh, it's fine. Here, it's the complete opposite. It's logos, logos, logos. You can pick it out. When we first started studying rhetoric, you guys were picking out logos, the entire thing. When we went through Letter from a Birmingham Jail, you found the logos before you found anything else, which is a very pathos-driven argument, but you were able to pick out the logos in there. You're right. Americans respond best to pathos. Secondly, to ethos. Lastly, to logos. So especially when you're seeing something, this was for American television. This was broadcast on network television. You know, it's like NBC or Fox, the equivalent of CCTV. All right. So it wasn't like on cable. It was on for the masses. So what are they going to do? You're absolutely right. They're going to pander. They're going to use pathos. They're going to appeal emotionally. We're going to scare you. We're going to use that big voice to show you that this is really serious. Right? The logos comes in, it kind of skirts underneath because they use that. The way that they use logos in this is by using experts, what we call expert testimony, right? So the logos is created by the people that are talking. It's how it's being said or how it's being delivered, not exactly what's being said. So they use the logos as Dr. Feisner, a prominent physicist from Harvard University, states that. Boom, there's your logos right there. But again, it's not exactly the statements, it's who's saying it. That's where the logos comes in. So yeah. But then they throw the ethos and pathos on top of the who's saying what. So. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? 5 minutes left? Really? Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. You do have homework. It's very brief homework. I've asked you to look over that chapter in your book, the chapter in They Say, I Say. I would like for you to simply write a summary. All right? I know, we're going back to the summary response. It's so much fun. But I want us to have a simple summary response. This is going to be a very short assignment. I'm going to upload this file to the server so you can go back and watch it again. I want just a summary of, did we land on the moon? Do not put your opinions in it. Do not use first person. Just a summary. We all know how to do it. But I want you to do it one more time. One more time with feeling, as we say. All right? So it'll be your last summary for the semester as we move into the argument. So we'll work on that. Next class period. Bring your summary in with you. Your next class period, we are going to start choosing your topics. Now, you know how I work with topics. Once you choose your topic, nobody else can choose it. So you need to start thinking about this. I want you to choose a conspiracy theory. It can be any conspiracy theory except, did we land on the moon? But, I want to repeat this. If somebody else chooses it, you can't use it, okay? So you have, I'm going to highly recommend, we had this problem with the previous paper, I'm going to highly recommend you choose 3 conspiracy theories. That way, if you come in and somebody's already chosen, you're like, yeah, no problem, Dr. P. I'll do this one instead, all right? So please, come in with like 3 conspiracy theories. Don't go and try to find the one that you can find the most information on, because you will find tons of information. Don't let that be a choosing factor for you. Choose one that is interesting to you, all right? Some people in here are already starting to show a little bit of desire for particular conspiracy theories, which is great, because that's showing you're starting to think critically about things. Your paper is not going to be to explore this conspiracy theory. It is going to be to disprove it. Your paper, your job, I should say should you choose to accept it, but you have to accept it, is to disprove a conspiracy theory of your choice. All right? And you will find, like I said, that there are plenty of sides both ways. So don't choose it just by how much information is available. Choose it by something that you find fascinating. Choose it by something that you can spend the next 2 to 3 weeks really focusing on. Okay? Any questions on that? That very first part where it's talking about addressing what they say. Yeah, we're going back on it. One summary. No, I want you to summarize, did we land on the moon? We didn't get a chance to talk about it today. We will talk about it next class period. I'm not asking you to summarize your book. I'm asking you to summarize the video. We've worked with text. We're moving towards working with video now. I want to see if you can summarize a video, okay? Because it's going to use different parts of your brain. Because you're going to have to... Okay, let me make this very clear. We're going to do 2 things with this short paper. Just focus on the summary right now. This is why I hate giving too many instructions at once. So I'm just going to say, just summarize. Just summarize. Don't put first person. Don't put opinion. I don't want any rhetoric, any fallacy, no nothing. Just a summary. And then we'll work with the summary, okay? Just bring it with you. Just bring it on your computer. Because there's one other thing we'll do with the paper. Anything else? Do what? I'm going to put it on the file server. Yeah. The name of it, just so you'll be able to find it easily, is very simply... Did we land on the moon? And it'll be in the FileZilla. I taught you guys how to use the FileZilla. It'll be in there in the media. Any other questions? Give me about probably 15 minutes and it'll be up. Okay? All right, guys. Really good work with the back channel chat today. Next time we do it, I want to see those levels of questions. We've kind of dropped off using it a whole lot. This brought it back. And, I mean, really, really good questions. I'll archive them and make sure that they're available to you. All right? Last chance for questions. Going once. Going twice. I'm going. Goodbye. See you later.